Have you ever wanted to see It Follows, but gay? Well, happy Pride Month, everybody, because that's kind of what Leviticus is. We have these two young boys in a very religious community who have feelings for each other, and when the adults around them find out, they perform this kind of ritual that results in the creation of this entity that is now after them, and it takes the form of the person they desire. To one boy, it looks like the other boy, and to the other boy, it looks like the first boy. So they don't know if they can actually trust the person they're attracted to, or if it's actually the entity after them. Interesting idea, very clear what the message is. It definitely wears its ideas on its sleeves, which is fine. Its heart is completely in the right place, and that's where the movie really does shine. I think this has some serious issues as an actual horror movie, which I will talk about, but as far as the story that it's dealing with, that's the real horror. To have these young kids just being who they are, expressing themselves, not hurting anybody, and then the adults around them, including their parents, the people who are supposed to protect them and care for them, do this awful thing to them, abuse them, show their bigotry and hatred and their idiocy, and essentially put them through supernatural conversion therapy. That's the terrifying part. I felt so bad for them. That's where I felt the most tension, not from the demon or whatever, but from all of the adults. They're surrounding them, staring them down, like judging them for being gay, and I'm genuinely worried for their safety, what the other people in this community might do to them. The people are the scary thing, not the demon. And it basically is like a conversion therapy type of thing. Like, oh, you don't want to go near that boy anymore because that might not even be him. It might be the demon. Never mind the fact that we created that problem. We did that to you. We're the ones who made it a problem. Just ignore that. Just terrible people. Absolute assholes. And Joe Bird from Talk to Me, and then Stacey Clausen, who I've never seen in anything before, they're really good as the two guys. I felt bad for their situation for sure. It's not the kind of horror movie where the parents are either absent for no reason or just kind of oblivious and you can never talk to them. It's the kind where the parents are actively part of the problem, and it makes the main characters feel isolated, like there's nowhere they can go for help. And the movie's really well shot, it looks nice, and that kind of helps create that feeling too, that atmosphere of loneliness. Turning this kind of experience that gay people could go through into horror makes complete sense. But my biggest issues with the movie are down to its execution as a horror movie. Now, there is one jump scare that genuinely got me. It caught me completely off guard. The movie doesn't rely on jump scares at all, but there was the one, and it was very good. But other than that, I felt no tension throughout this movie because the way the actual entity was written, I think was all wrong. It does have some similarities to things like It Follows, which happens to be one of my personal favorite horror films of all time, so you already got some big shoes to fill. But I feel like this doesn't really fully understand why movies like that work. It takes a while for the horror to really kick in. There's an opening kill to let us know that it is a horror movie. Then after that, it's kind of a drama for a while of these kids dealing with this awful thing, this awful pressure from their parents and their community. And then once the horror really kicks in, once the entity is summoned, I felt no tension because in some areas, the rules were so clearly established that there was no fear. And in other areas, the rules were so vague that there was no fear. Let me explain. It's very clearly established that the entity will only appear to them when they are alone. So from that point on, once we know that, every scene after that, when they're not alone, we know, well, okay, that's not the entity. And when they are alone, we know, okay, I guess it probably is. It makes it so clear every time. And that's the opposite of the point. The tension should come from not knowing. When we see the other boy in the school hallway, and he gives the other guy a little bit of a look and then goes into the bathroom, it's like, ooh, should we follow him in there? Was that really him? Was that... But we're in the school hallway. There's a bunch of people, which means it can't be the entity because the entity can't appear in crowds. So what's the tension? They lay out so many things specifically in the dialogue that just takes away the suspense. There's one point where the boys have a falling out and they make it pretty clear, like, we're gonna stay away from each other. I'm not gonna come near you anymore. And so from that point on, it's like, well, okay then. If he sees him, it's not really him, it's the entity. And then that proves to be true. It lays out its rules so clearly that there's no suspense. But then there's other parts of the rules that are just odd. Like, why can't it appear in a crowd? What is it, fucking shy? Why can't it appear in a crowd and lure you to a secluded area? And in something like It Follows, we know that the entity is, in fact, following you. It has to walk to where you are. That is not established to be the case here. As far as we can tell, it seems to be able to just appear wherever these boys are, appear wherever it wants to. And yet it has to, like, appear over there and walk toward you and try to convince you that it's the real guy. It's got to appear outside your house and try to get you to let it in. Why doesn't it just appear right next to you? Why doesn't it appear in your house? And I know asking why questions about a fictional demon can be a little silly. It's like asking why the demon in It Follows doesn't just run. But when the rules don't seem to make any sense, and when it's not scary at all, and you can easily think of some simple tweaks to the script that would make it scarier, I think it is fair to ask why. I also wish I could have been more connected to the main characters. I liked them well enough because I really felt for their situation, and the movie's also not afraid to make them flawed. One of them does something really awful at one point in the movie, and he is actually responsible for a lot of the harm that ends up happening. He got upset, he lashed out, he did something that he should not have done, and that's fucked up. But it's realistic. But I wish I felt a little bit more realism in them as, like, whole characters. I don't really know much about them beyond how they are with each other. We don't really get a feel for them much as individuals. We start the movie with them hanging out for the first time, just kind of like randomly initiated. The guy even says, "You never really talked to me much at school, but you just randomly asked me to hang out one day. What's the deal with that?" And then they just start making out, and now they're into each other. We know so little about what they're really like as individuals, and we know practically nothing about why they're into each other other than that they both just happen to be the gay guys who are around. So there's not many options, I guess. So because of all that, even though it's only like 90 minutes, I think, it actually felt kind of long. It felt like it was dragging a little bit for me, just because I felt like I needed more from those characters, and I just wasn't invested in it as a horror movie. Like, once that horror really began, it immediately kind of felt off to me. Like, I've seen a lot of horror movies. I know what works and what doesn't, at least for me, for my personal taste. And so just fundamentally, the way the horror in this is constructed just completely didn't work for me. And horror is first and foremost what I went to this for. I feel like you really could have played around with this concept. You could have had us following one of the characters, and then the character we're following turns out to be the demon in that scene, going after the other guy when we thought maybe the other guy was the demon. There was actually one scene where I thought that is what was happening, but it wasn't. So I was just kind of let down. I was like, oh, it's way more predictable than my idea. Not to give myself credit, but it was predictable. And predictability is one of the things that can really kill horror, so it just didn't really work for me, even though I like some things about it. So I am gonna give Leviticus a 2. On a filmmaking level, and with the movie's heart being in the right place, it is of quality. And I think if people just want to see that queer representation, they want to see it more for that story rather than for the horror, it's going to have its fans. It's gotten pretty good reviews so far. It's not a bad movie by any means, but as a horror movie, which is the main thing most people are probably going to go focused on, I do think it genuinely fails to be effective horror. So see it if the story interests you, but if you want anything new in the actual horror realm, I don't think it has much on offer. But this was all my opinion. Leave yours down in the comments below. Whether you agree or disagree, I want to talk about it down there. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more from me. I appreciate it, and I hope to see you next time.